guys, now it's time to talk about in-game settings. Like I said in the first video, your settings are personal preference. Now, I can give you an idea of what I use and what I think is good to use and some things you should probably do, but in the end, going pro is not contingent on your settings. You need to learn to find your comfort zone through some drills I will show you in future sections with mechanics and related to aim and sensitivity and movement, but overall you need to find what works best for your hands and your mind when you're playing the game, and I'll give you a couple recommendations along the way. So we're going to look in game right here and look at some basic settings. Now the first thing when you guys launch the game that I want you to do is come in options and go to game settings. First off, make sure you enable developer console so you can pull up console like this and put in commands. Secondly, turn off instructor game messages. The hope is that I'm your instructor. You don't need any game messages even if you're a beginner, and turn those off as soon and as fast as you're ready. Now next up, one of the first commands I want to show you, which is kind of jumping ahead in a certain way, but in reality it's important, is CL_radar_scale. I like to make my CR radar scale 0.5 because it actually zooms out the radar on the top left so you can see more of the map when you're playing. And then next up, CR_radar always centered, and then I don't know why it's 0.6, but it should be 1. As long as it's 1, it's always centered on you as a person. Now, if you really want to change this and you find that you can use radar better with that set to 0, that's fine. Just find your comfort zone with using radar, and I suggest you using radar scale 5 to see more of the map. Next up, we're going to talk about resolutions. This is one that people always ask me, what do you use, why do I use this? Guys, I've played 1.6 for a long time. I've played CS for 18 years. I don't need the max resolution to see ahead long distance, for instance, and that's most time people's question. I use 1024, but like I said, 69, if you want to use it, all these reses are going to make it so you actually see more of the edge of your screens than 4:3. So you'd say, Jordan, why don't you use that? Get used to it. I did use it for a while, and then I've tried 4:3, and I've noticed it didn't really make a huge difference to my game. It can make a small difference, which could mean a lot pro level. Shroud uses it, so it's obviously fine. It's really just finding what's comfortable to you and using it. Next up, these are kind of personal preference. I make sure I keep shader detail on high and shadow quality on high because I want to see the shadows on the ground because I use those to help me line up grenades and things of that nature. Next up, crosshair settings. For crosshair, obviously I use classic static, so that's crosshair style 4. Now I like this one because I'm just old school. Counter-Strike 1.6, you just had the 4 lines. I like that. I actually use a larger crosshair than most of you guys would recommend. My crosshair size is, and maybe I'll put a little graphic over the screen. You can see my crosshair. It's a large standard crosshair, and I'll put one floating over here somewhere on the screen. If you guys see, I use a large crosshair. Now, the reason I use that, like I said, is from 1.6. Now, my belief is that a crosshair is just meant to help you see the center of the screen. A lot of times on my stream, I use no crosshair to show people that really I just need to see the center of my screen in some form to know where I'm aiming, and whatever helps me focus on everything else as much as possible is the best, because I believe if you're focused too much through your crosshair, your aim and reactions are going to be limited to a certain field of vision. Now, everyone's going to find their own preference in terms of crosshair size, so maybe you like a really small dot, which is totally fine and awesome. Use whatever is comfortable to you. Now, last but not least, I think one of the things that I wish I did earlier is grenade binds. Now, when you have grenade binds in CSGO, it helps you pull out grenades faster, and I never bound these. See, I have them still set to the numbers up here. Now, I'm able to perform it fast, and I use last inventory button, which is Q, to switch between my last weapon I have pulled out, and then I use just the numbers, and I go really fast. But I think something that's better is setting like HE, Baltov, Flash to like C, V, F, G, something like that, that's comfortable to you. Could be numpad buttons if you use arrow keys, and setting those binds early so that you could quickly pull out a grenade. But obviously I don't use it, so it's not imperative. Guys, find the settings that you like. You're not gonna not go pro if you don't use the right settings, but you're gonna want to find stuff that you could stick to. And that's the most important. Stick to settings while you're trying to get better so you build up that muscle memory, you build up just that comfort, and then if you get really good, you can tinker with some settings. And obviously, sensitivity is something you might jump around with, but you want to try to land on something that you're relatively comfortable with because you're going to take time to get good anyways, so let the settings be a secondary focus to your comfort and don't worry about using the same stuff as pros.